じゃあお前は堂島大吾を助けるために阿波のビルに来たってわけか。
ああ。だが分からないのは、なぜ俺たちを始末しようとしたかだ。
いや、和樹は俺たちをおびき出すための餌だ。俺たちの存在が邪魔な連中、俺たちに共通するもの。わからねえ。
仕組んだのはおそらく大悟と合田会長を拉致した海外組織だ。
海外組織？
府警の別所という刑事がそう言っていた。
別所？
知ってるのか？
盗聴も盗撮もされてねえ。安心しな。
ああ。しかし伊達さん、どうして俺があの場所にいると？
和樹から聞いた。お前さんのことだからまた事件に巻き込まれてんじゃねえかと思ってな。
Yakuza 3. The game equally revered and reviled by many members of the community to the point that it's likely the most divisive entry in the series. After playing it for myself, I can definitely see both ends of the argument. Released in February 2009 in Japan, and internationally in March 2010, Yakuza 3 currently stands as the oldest game in the series that is still widely available in modern times. Unfortunately, many quality of life improvements apparent in later games are absent due to how old 3 is. So have fun dealing with loading zones every time you go into a building or finish a fight without the upgrades coming from the Dragon engine. At the very least, we now have Ryuku making its one and only appearance alongside Kamurocho to entice players to put up with these downgrades. In this game, our beloved Kazuma Kiryu has finally moved on from the Yakuza life, now running an orphanage of Haruka in Okinawa, much like how his father figure Kazuma did all those years ago. But since this is a Yakuza game, Kiryu unfortunately has to deal with another conspiracy as the Tojo clan endures another power struggle on top of the proposed construction of a holiday resort and military base threatening the life he built for himself for over the past 2 years. All of these events take place within 12 chapters, marking this as the shortest game up to this point. Don't think that this means that 3 lacks content, as despite only having 12 chapters, Yakuza 3 has many of the minigames present throughout the other games for the players to indulge in on the side, even beating the game to introduce karaoke to the series. That alone makes it a standout in my eyes, but many criticize the title for its numerous flaws, even with its close to universally loved story. So is this game an underrated masterpiece that people bash too hard, or should people skip this game because of its flaws, as many Reddit posts have asked in the past? Hopefully, with my fresh viewpoint after playing it for the first time, I can answer this question and reveal what Yakuza 3 truly is. Now, let's finally dive in and discover the truth behind a game as divisive as Yakuza 3. Out of all the flaws present in 3, none get talked about as much as the combat. As the first game in the series, besides Kenzan, created for the PS3, its combat set the stage for the rest of the games in this era as well as those in the Dragon engine. This does leave me with very little to say about it, as I've already given my thoughts on the Zero and Kwame versions of the style. The only 2 major differences in my eyes are the way the upgrades are handled in this game and your inability to disable heat prompts. Instead of having a skill tree like Zero or Kiwami, or allowing you to unlock almost any skill whenever you want like Kiwami 2, 3 gives you 4 categories to spend EXP on with 10 levels each. It's pretty basic and can be annoying if you're looking for a particular skill. For example, double finishing blow is unlocked at tech level 5, but you must have enough EXP to get through levels 2 through 4 before you can get it. This can be annoying for certain skills, but it's honestly not all that different from skill trees in the other 2 games. Additionally, there isn't a way to disable prompts for heat actions, seeing as that was a quality of life feature introduced later on. It may take some time getting used to at first, but it quickly becomes a non-issue the further you progress. And of course, this wouldn't be a Yakuza 3 video if I didn't talk about blocking. Every enemy in this game, from basic thugs to the story bosses, is a blocking champion, essentially rendering your basic punches and kicks moot. People have criticized this so much to the point that Yakuza 3 has earned the nickname Blockuza 3, and if I'm gonna be honest, I feel like these people are maudlin. Like sure, enemies block a lot of your attacks, but you are still able to grab and tiger drop them to deal quick damage. Hell, you can stick to just the rush combos and deal damage with the triple light and double heavy string. For most people, the options at your disposal should be more than enough to get them through the main story. In my opinion, the chase sequences should be called out far more than they currently are. Don't get me wrong, people do talk about how bad they are in game, but it feels like as if there's far less discussion about it compared to the so-called blocking problem. It seems simple on the surface, as you either chase a person until you tackle them enough, or get chased until you reach a certain point on the map. But the way it's handled fucking sucks. If you do so much as bang into one person, all of your momentum is gone and you lose energy as well. While there are only a few in the game, each one is such a drag that I despised it each time I was forced to endure one of them. On a brighter note, Komaki is joined by 3 other newly introduced training masters that expand on what you can do as Kiryu. Komaki's training is more of the same, having you fight some bozos to unlock the same set of moves that Kiryu has forgotten once again. Thankfully, there are 3 new moves that Komaki has to teach him, but each of them is so situational to the point that you'd rarely, if ever, use them. It's good to see the old geezer again though. Yonashiro is the new face, training Kiryu how to learn 3 weapons, some of which he learned how to use by watching some videos in Kwami 2. Has anyone checked on Kiryu to make sure he doesn't have dementia? To relearn these weapons, simply beat him up while he uses them. Even without many upgrades, it's not that hard to overcome his challenges. Next up is Mac, a professional photographer that Kiryu runs into several times in the story. During his first encounter, he introduces Kiryu to Revelations, a gameplay mechanic that actually persists in the future entries. It probably helps that it's pretty simple in concept, as Kiryu just watches something happen that is wacky and spectacular, posting it to his blog after you pick the correct response to what happened. Each one gives you a new move practically for free, so going after each of them as they show up is a no-brainer. He also offers running training. Oh god, I'm going to have to do more chase sequences, aren't I? Well, they aren't that bad because of their low stakes, but the benefits they give come far too late into the game as by the time you have access to it, the main story only has one very easy chase sequence left. It's entirely missable too, leading me to question what the fuck RGG was thinking when they planned this out. Lastly, Minamina shows up with a brand new invention known as Inner Fighter 7, IF-7 for short. This machine allows Kiryu to unlock several new skills by beating some of the bosses in the main story under new circumstances. Some of these fights are pretty fun too, like the one where Joji swaps bodies with Kiryu, making it impossible to damage him. You even get to fight another Kiryu, which is so damn cool that words cannot properly explain it. While some might be more interesting than others, each master spices up the game by offering a unique way to gain new skills, something I greatly appreciate. If I had to summarize my thoughts on Yakuza 3's combat, I'd definitely say that it requires more strategy than previous entries. I personally don't mind this, as it forced me to adapt to situations at hand rather than sticking to the same thing I've been doing the past 278 encounters. People can argue to the end of time whether or not the combat in this game sucks, but in my opinion, it's pretty good and far from the worst part of the game. To no one's surprise, Yakuza 3's plot involves another conspiracy taking place between 2007 and 2009. However, the Yakuza aren't the ones being targeted this time around, rather the plot of land Kiryu now lives on. After spending the past 2 years managing Morning Glory Orphanage in Okinawa, Kiryu is drawn into the fold to endure his most personal struggle yet. If he fails, then all will be for naught as the life he made for himself will be taken away by power-hungry politicians and Yakuza with no care about those they harm. Kazuma Kiryu, after finally escaping the Yakuza life, has finally settled down into a simple life where he looks after Haruka and 8 other orphans all the way in Ryukyu, Okinawa. And man, can you tell how happy he is. I don't blame him either. Having the chance to just live your life the way you want must be refreshing once you've been dealing with the Yakuza and their shenanigans for the past 19 years. But as to be expected by this point, this brief period of peace is cut short by the ministers of defense and domestic travel proposing bills for the expansion of a military base and the construction of a brand new resort, threatening to kick him and the orphans at Morning Glory out if he doesn't do anything about it. At first, things appear to go well once Kiryu beats the shit out of Tetsuro Tamashiro, Yakuza member in Okinawa, aiding the Minister of Domestic Travel in acquiring land for the resort. But all hell breaks loose when Daigo, now the 6th chairman of the Tojo clan, is shot and put out of commission seemingly by none other than Kiryu's long-dead father figure, Shintaro Kazuma. Now back in Kamurocho, Kiryu once again uses his fist to beat his way through the Yakuza and anyone else who opposes him, eventually learning the truth behind the proposed bills. They were all a part of a ploy made by Ryuzu Tamiya, the Minister of Defense, to lure out the international arms trafficking syndicate Black Monday and eliminate them once and for all. This information doesn't come for free, as some of Kiryu's closest allies lose their lives in the pursuit of protecting the orphanage. Nevertheless, he charges forward in their name, confronting Yoshitaka Mine, a high-ranking member of the Tojo clan working alongside Black Monday, to end this plot once and for all. In a long and arduous battle, the two combatants fight with all their strength to see whose ideology is the correct one. As the dust settles, Kiryu comes out on top, granting him the peace he longs for once again. From this point onward, Kiryu is less of a fists first, ask questions later type of guy. Sure, he still beats the ever-loving shit out of plenty of people in future entries, after all this is the Yakuza series, but it's not his first option, rather, he empathizes with his enemies. Despite both Mine and Go Hamazaki, another Tojo clan officer, being constant thorns in his side throughout most of the game, he still offers them the chance of redemption. Miyu's situation ends the way he wants, especially with Hamazaki stabbing Kiryu for even considering it, but he doesn't care. No matter who they are or what they did to him, Kiryu always believes that they can change for the better. If someone like him can do it, then so can they. Haruka Sawamura moves with Kiryu to Okinawa, helping him with his new career path and taking on an older sister role for the other orphans. She might only be a preteen, but her maturity shines through with how she handles the problems that arise at the orphanage. Kiryu even goes as far as to leave her in charge of it when he has to return to Kamurocho, showing just how much he trusts his adoptive daughter. Besides that, an unimportant side adventure with her, Haruka doesn't do much in the story. It'll be a while before she does again, so the least we can do is enjoy our time with her. Ayako, Taichi, Koji, Ryona, Mitsuo, Eri, Shiro, and Izumi might not be major characters, but their inclusion to the story greatly benefits Kiryu as a character. Due to them being the kids that Kiryu looks after at Morning Glory, he tends to deal with whatever problems they have going on, whether that be helping Izumi befriend a dog she later names Mame, figuring out who's bullying Shiro at school, or helping Koji make a new friend by playing baseball. These tasks might seem mundane, but that's the point of them. They represent the simple life Kiryu has tried to live several times before being dragged into another clusterfuck, and he'd do anything to protect them, even if it would harm him. Makoto Date has officially moved on from his past as a police officer, now working under Yakuza as a reporter. Bit of an unusual career choice, but if it allows him to pursue justice on his own terms, then who am I to argue? After another chance encounter with Kiryu, the two of them work together to figure out which of the remaining Tojo clan members is helping pull the strings behind the resort and military girls. And much like Haruka, he kinda just lingers around the story afterwards since he's not a major character. Somewhat of a shame, but not including him would be a sin, so I'll take info dumps over nothing. Much like Daigo, the Ryo family's captain Enrique Shimabukuro fulfills the role of a young, eager Yakuza that sticks by Kiryu's side throughout the game. Yet, unlike his predecessor, he gets a decent amount of time in the spotlight to show that despite his hot-headedness and naivete, he's a good-natured fellow that genuinely cares about the people he's close to and the place he calls home. Nothing shows this better than his tattoo, an Okinawa Habu Viper. Where it differs from most tattoos in this series is that most of its significance doesn't derive from what it depicts, rather its unfinished state. As a rookie, Riki still has a long way to go before he discovers his place in the world and the identity he holds in it. It isn't until he meets Kiryu that he starts to mature into the man he's meant to be, eventually resulting in the completion of his tattoo and his sub-story. Everything seems to be going fine and dandy until Kiryu forgets to properly disarm Tamashiro, forcing Rikia to take a bullet for his mentor. With his final breaths, he urges Kiryu to continue onward and stop Mine before it's too late. The real tragedy in Riki's demise isn't the demise itself, but how unnecessary it was. Kiryu just took away the gun from Tamashiro, Rikia would be alive and well. Alas, that's not the world we live in. Rikia perfectly mirrors the younger version of Kiryu, naive and rash, but selfless and determined at the same time, only he wasn't as lucky as the man he held to such a high degree and paid the ultimate price for it. Rest in peace. Mikio Aragaki serves directly under Rikia and the Ryo family, essentially acting as his hype man. He may put up an intimidating face at first, but in reality he's a friendly teddy bear without a mean bone in his body. Mikio even built a doghouse for Mame despite initially proposing the idea as a joke. This later comes back towards the end of the story, where he puts his life on the line to protect it from Tamashiro family members, almost dying in the process. Mikio might not have much screen time, but his simple role benefits the story far more than it harms it in my opinion. Shigeru Nakahara is the patriarch of the Rito family and starts off as an antagonistic force as well, trying to evict Kiryu in the hopes that the resort bill will benefit the Okinawan people. Yet when Kiryu saves Saki, a mute girl that the patriarch views as a daughter, Nakahara changes his mind and becomes one of his allies. Unfortunately, he gets shot in a similar manner to Daigo for protecting Kiryu, pushing him out of the story until Kiryu returns to Okinawa. Like his subordinate, Nakahara has a tattoo on his back, though his is of a shisha, a creature known for warding off evil spirits, alongside hibiscus flowers. Not only does Nakahara protect Ryukyu from people like Tamashiro that aim to abuse the land for their own nefarious purposes, he also looks after Saki, being more of a parent to her than her piece-of-shit mom ever was. This self-imposed duty even gives him the strength to overpower Bull when she cries out in fear of potentially seeing him die. It's a shame that neither he nor Mikio appear in future games, especially when Yakuza 6 could have easily given them something as small as a cameo, but it is what it is. Kazuki and Yuya continue their streak of appearing in mainline entries post-Kiwami, yet their role in the story is much smaller this time around. With only around 4 scenes each, the duo continues to aid Kiryu by fighting against the Nishikiyama family and warning him about suspicious foreigners present in town. That might be all they do, but it's always great to see some familiar faces, so their presence is definitely welcome. Similarly, DeFlores' role is reduced to nothing more than a cameo, informing Kiryu about Hamasaki's plans involving the resort and the Chinese triad. After that, he shows up for one more scene before disappearing for the rest of the story. Normally, that means I wouldn't mention him, but I figured now would be a good time to warn people that this is the point in the series when a lot of major characters from the very first game start to fade into obscurity. It'll take a bit longer before they're fully gone, but you can definitely see how their relevance to the overall plot is decreasing. Osamu Kashiwagi takes the reins of the Tojo clan after Daigo is shot, and man do I not envy him. With a newly brewing civil war on the horizon, Kashiwagi has to ensure none of it comes to fruition while figuring out the reason why Daigo was shot. The interim chairman, believing it to be the best option he has, calls Kiryu into a meeting to see what their next steps should be. But their meeting isn't the only thing cut short when a helicopter suddenly appears and riddles him with bullets in a matter of seconds. Just like that, a pivotal figure in Kiryu's life and the last true connection he has to his past is taken from him in an instant. As tragic as it is, it highlights that the Yakuza are changing from the honor-bound clans they used to be into a shell of their former selves. A foster like Kashiwagi has no place in this new world. And it's not like getting shot near point-blank range from a minigun is something that you can survive from. After experiencing 3 back-to-back games where he was either the protagonist or had an expanded role thanks to new content added, Goro Majima takes more of a backseat for the first time in ages. It's a very sensible decision given how exhausted he is of the chicanery he spent the past 4 years dealing with, especially now that he rejoined the clan after Kiryu asked him to. While not at the forefront of his appearance in this game, small hints of his more serious side show from time to time, something that we later use to develop his future complexity. But for the time being, he continues to work alongside his Kiryu-chan, granting us more classic Majima moments that we all love to see. Yoshinobu Suzuki is an odd character, only having one scene in a news broadcast despite the major role he has in the story. As the Minister of Domestic Travel, he's the main man behind the resort bill that lingers throughout most of the story, yet not a single major character actually talks to him on screen, rendering him kinda forgettable. The Minister of Defense Ryozo Tamiya, on the other hand, has plenty of screen time, spending close to half an hour explaining the plot of the game to Kiryu and Date. To the public, he adamantly proclaims the importance of the military base to test a new ballistic missile defense system. However, this is all a show to lure out Black Monday from the shadows as the system doesn't even exist. In exchange for this information, he asks that Kiryu prevents the assassination of his former assistant even though he recently betrayed him to work for the other side. His role is fairly minor for the most part, but it's just enough to reveal what we need to know about his goals and that his sense of honor is similar to the ones that noble Yakuza members like Kiryu have. No wonder he has a Sigma male at it. Tsuyoshi Kanda is a total piece of shit that unfortunately takes control of the Nishikiyama family. A total brute with 0 brains, it's clear that he only rose to his current position by sheer coincidence after Nishiki's and Shindo's deaths left the family without a leader. It's no surprise that his tattoo features Tenyo, a spiritual being depicted as a beautiful woman that's associated with Japanese Buddhism. Yet talking about that would be a mistake, as Kanda doesn't have it because it symbolizes something to him. Rather, it's just a beautiful woman devoid of any meaning besides his lustful nature. Kanda bastardizes the legacy left behind by Nishiki, listening to his dick instead of literally anything else. The fact that he of all people managed to become the leader of one of the biggest families in the Tojo clan shows just how far both the Nishikiyama family and the clan as a whole have fallen since 2005. He's definitely more than a two-bit thug that got too big for his britches, being dispatched by Mine once he's overstayed his welcome. Go Hamazaki is another Tojo clan officer, ironically running a family with only 10 members. The true source of his power comes from his connection to the Snake Flower Triad, allowing them to run loose in Yokohama after Kiryu fucked them over in Kwame. Not gonna lie, Hamazaki does prove to be a decent threat to Kiryu, almost throwing him off his trail in a wild goose chase that implicates Majima in the resort deal. But he couldn't predict that when Kiryu's around, anyone that opposes him is bound to lose. For Hamazaki, this ends up being the death of his main business partner, resulting in him needing to go into hiding lest he gets murdered like the rest of his family. Despite all of this, Kiryu offers Hamazaki the chance to redeem himself, getting a knife to the gut for his kindness. Strangely, while you never fight Hamazaki in the main story, he actually has a fully programmed boss fight and several optional modes unlocked after beating the main story, begging the question as to why that is the case. Did RGG originally intend for him to be a fight in the main story, changing their minds very late in development? Were they unable to make it until very late into the game's life cycle, forcing them to add him to post-game content instead of the main story? We'll probably never know, but this does mean Hamazaki is the first major villain to not die in his introductory game, so good for him! Take this ribbon for your outstanding performance. Lao Kai returns to be a one-chapter wonder, desperate to get revenge on Kiryu for defeating him 4 years ago. To ensure he has a chance to fight against Kiryu, he teams up with Hamazaki to retain the Snake Flower Triad's foothold in Japan and kidnaps Rikia for bait. Another three-phase battle ensues where Kiryu must defeat Lao once again to save Rikia's life. Obviously, the rematch goes the same way as their first battle, earning Lao a bullet to the head from the Kazuma imposter, something that was so explicitly fatal that no one could ever survive it. And I said that it was so explicitly fatal that no one, and I mean no one, could ever. Daigo Dojima, now officially the 6th chairman of the Tojo clan, has a lot on his plate. Nevertheless, he does what he can for the clan, and honestly does a pretty good job of it from the little bit we see. Regrettably, his tenure is put on hold after a potential business deal about the resort and military bills goes wrong and ends with him going into a coma. Even though it would have probably benefited the clan and brought them out of the period of turmoil they were stuck in, Daigo refuses to take part due to his loyalty towards Kiryu and paid the price for it. Daigo, thankfully, recovers to full health at the end of the story, showing his proficiency with a gun even after waking up from a coma. Honestly, it's a bit of a weird choice to sideline him for the second game in a row, but at least future games still give him ways to contribute. Tetsuo Tamashiro starts off as a strong supporting antagonist, acting as opposition to the Ryoto family and later Kiryu in the first quarter of the game. In his brief appearance, it's made abundantly clear how low he's willing to stoop to in order to achieve his goals, manipulating people, including his sexual partners, however he needs to. He may not be the most vile character in the game, but Tamashiro is definitely up there. After Kiryu kicks his ass, he practically disappears until he's needed to provide a distraction for the protagonist before the endgame, kidnapping his rival Nakahara to lure Kiryu into another trap. The fucker unfortunately gets the last laugh by killing Rikia since Kiryu foolishly left him with a gun, but a bullet to the brain ends his schemes once and for all. If he had more of a presence in this story, I'd probably think much higher of Tamashiro, but his 2 brief appearances diminish the little impact he could have had. Remember how I said Kiwami 2 would be the last time we saw Shintaro Kazuma? Well, I lied. Kinda. Shintaro Kazuma is still long dead at this point, but his secret twin brother Joji Kazuma is alive and well. Yes, you heard me right. His secret twin brother that looks exactly like him and was never mentioned up until this point. I wish I could say that is the most absurd plot twist in this series, but that would be another lie. Unlike his brother, Joji worked on the side of the law with Tabi until his connection to a prominent Tojo clan member was exposed. Fleeing to the United States, he was recruited into the CIA and now takes part in the plot to bring Black Monday to justice. The game initially sets him up as the main instigator who shot both Daigo and Nakahara, but upon meeting him, Kiryu discovers how similar Joji is to Shintaro even after going down vastly different paths. If I'm going to be completely real with you, it kind of feels like one of the main reasons for having Joji in this game was to have Kiryu fight Kazuma in some way after his death. This isn't a knock on him, as this fight is one of the best ones in the game with a really cool set piece, and it just shows how far Kiryu has come from the first game. Andre Richardson is the main man behind Black Monday, secretly pulling the strings as a CIA agent at the same time. No matter what way you look at him, he's a pretty shallow character, only motivated by his own interests. I still really fucking love him though. Whether it be his rough accent or his dope boss fight with cool QTEs, something about him is just very interesting to me. This Albert Wesker wannabe makes the most of his limited screen time and serves as an entertaining overarching antagonist, before Mine takes matters into his own hands and tosses both of them off the rooftop of the hospital Daigo is recovering in, ensuring neither would ever be seen ever again. After all, it would take like a miracle or something to survive a fall as great as this one. Yosh Takamine, the Hakuo clan chairman and main moneymaker for the Tojo clan, initially might seem like a weird choice for one of Kiryu's main rivals, but by peeling back the layers of his character, it becomes clear as day how perfectly he suits the role. As a businessman later turned into a prominent Yakuza member, he fulfills the schemer trope to a T, even bribing Honda to facilitate his entry into the Yakuza. With Daigo comatose, Mine goes against his wishes to work alongside Richardson, believing it to be in the best interest of the struggling Tojo clan. His cold and emotionless personality makes him play like nothing more than another power-hungry maggot feasting on the dying corpse of the Tojo clan, yet several cracks show up throughout certain points of the story, bringing into question who Mine really is. On his back, a depiction of a Kiryan can be seen, another mythological creature in Japanese culture. Kiryans only appear under the command of a benevolent ruler and would do anything to protect them. To Mine, this benevolent ruler is Daigo, a man that treated him like an equal despite being at the top of the totem pole. Mine, devastated by Daigo's current state, decided to take matters into his own hands, yet in his own twisted way, he was doing so to help out the man he cares about the most. Kiryans are also said to be capable of killing dragons, something that can be seen in their climactic duel. Out of all the villains Kiryu goes up against in the entire series, Mine is the only one that brings an uninjured Kiryu at his peak down to his knees, proving that Mine is more than just another cowardly schemer. If Ryuji was a foil to the legend behind the dragon in Dojima, then Mine is a foil for the man behind the myth. Both grew up as poor orphans, yet where Kiryu had the love of Kazuma, Nishiki, and Yumi, Mine had no one. He had to fend for himself, developing a bitter outlook on the world. He knew that stuff like power, money, and status were ultimately meaningless, yet he still pursued those goals as he had nothing else. Yet by joining the Yakuza, he hoped to find a purpose in the bonds he had developed with those around him, almost doing so with Daigo. This wasn't a battle of honor, revenge, or anything like that. This was a battle between the cynical misanthrope Yosh Takamine and the idealistic dreamer Kazuma Kiryu, with an amazing theme to represent the conflict. By the end of their battle, Mine realizes the error of his ways, but it's far too late. Rather than live and atone for his crimes, the redeemed villain decides to take his own life, believing that he isn't worthy of the second chance granted to him by Kiryu and Daigo. I absolutely love Mine as a character, and as of right now he's my favorite villain in the entire series, and I couldn't think of a better character to start the trend of giving notable bosses dynamic intros. Farewell, Yosh Takamine. Your legacy will live on in the hearts of many. Yakuza 3 has once again raised the bar in regards to the standards set by the main cast of characters. Some of the same issues are still present, but RGG has definitely gotten a lot better at managing more characters. Hopefully future entries continue this upward trend, even if there are some road bumps along the way. As to be expected, Yakuza 3 has its own side mode centered around the Honest Living Association, HLA, a group created by Kashiwaki to rehabilitate former members of the Yakuza. Following his demise, the current head of HLA Buki recruits Kiryu to fight off a group of former Yakuza members now working as assassins known as the Reapers that are targeting them for unknown reasons. Kiryu, of course, accepts and is tasked with confronting Reaper members in both Kamurocho and Okinawa in order to discover who's really behind the assassins. The setup for this side activity isn't all that different compared to previous modes, but where it starts to differ is in its simplicity. Rather than introducing you to a brand new form of gameplay, all you end up doing is beating up each member of the Reapers that you find until they agree to go with you to HLA. There are some standouts among the pack, like the one where you go up against an army consisting of 50 men, and the cross-dressing assassin and his partner that you fight in a bowling alley, but none of them really leave that much of an impression. After fighting 19 other members of the Reapers, Kiryu finally comes face to face with their leader, Kazuto Arase. Remember him? He's the guy from Kwame that appeared in one chapter to be a boss fight and do literally nothing else. This one to be exact. You still don't remember him? Ah, well, either way he's back for blood, pissed off at Kiryu for ruining him and his reputation that fateful night. This fight isn't all that different from Richardson's, using most of the same moves minus the shotgun, but his second in command Shinzaki makes it a notable challenge. If you want to stand a chance against the head of the Reapers, taking out the Majima wannabe is your best bet, otherwise I hope you packed a lot of stamina royales. Once the two are finally beaten, Arase refuses to go with HLA, but still disbands the Reapers. With his final words, he promises to fight Kiryu one more time, a promise that goes unfulfilled as the series forgets about him outside of an appearance in Dead Souls of all things. Kinda weird that this is where they handle forgotten plot points that could have been in mainline games, but I digress. While not that complex, the Hitman missions are a neat little addition that serve their role well while not being something tedious that you need to do for 100% completion. But at the same time, they're a forgettable feature that falls to the wayside in comparison to more outlandish modes like Clan Creator. But, for the two Arase fans out there, this mode definitely added depth to an otherwise uninteresting character, so it did that right at least. Substories are once again present in Yakuza 3. Shocking, I know. It's not like all the other games have them as well. However, this game has the most amount of substories for a total of 119, 19 more than there were in Yakuza 0. Unfortunately, the sheer amount of them alongside the age of 3 do mean that most substories aren't all that interesting. It wouldn't be a Yakuza game if there wasn't some generic scam substory that got settled in 5 minutes. The good thing about the forgettable ones is that it makes the actual unique ones stand out far more. Take the aforementioned substory where Riki's tattoo is completed by the same guy that created Kiryu's. It's a great character moment for Riki that ties into the main story in the way most other substories don't. Or how about the one where we get to learn more about Datai's past as an officer and see him move on from his previous marriage. Substories like this really add depth to the main cast that isn't present in the main story, almost as if it should be in the main story. I also can't forget about Murder at Cafe Alps, a murder mystery a la Ace Attorney where Kiryu has to solve a murder to prove someone's innocence. And Silver Screen Dragon, where your memory skills are put to the test as Kiryu plays out a script for a movie. They're not overtly complex, but when most substories are less simple than an amoeba, they certainly stand out as among the best in the entire series. Joymon also makes a comeback for his third match of Kiryu, having made another scheme to hopefully allow him to beat him once and for all. Remember Minamita, the guy who made the IF-7 machine? Well, as it turns out, Joe is actually the person who made the schematics for it, and asked Minamita to create it for him to use as a battle simulator. Reluctantly, Minamita agreed, not realizing who Joe was until it was too late. That's why the game developer fled to Kamurocho, as he hoped to run into the man that had beaten the assassin in the past. Kiryu, the nobleman that he is, agrees to take on Joe in another battle. Much like his bout in Kiwami 2, Joe starts off the battle wielding 2 photon swords. In this phase, it's practically impossible to deal any damage to him with your rush combos. His attacks are just too fast and too overwhelming that even Tiger Drops are unreliable. To build up heat, you're better off charging it up rather than attacking him at all, lest you take too much damage. This does make the first phase take quite a while, but it beats losing to him. Once he loses 2 bars of health, he tosses his swords away and draws dual pistols and their steed, giving him a moveset similar to Richardson and Arase. For the rest of the fight, you mainly just have to evade his shots and hit him from behind, as the last phase keeps him with the same moveset for the most part, only adding some melee attacks on top of what he already does. Heat actions are still completely viable, so using both should make quick work of one of the easiest iterations of Joemon. Perhaps he should be put on fraud watch or something after these back-to-back losses. Yakuza 3 Substories are a mixed bag, containing ones that should have been in the main story as well as ones you're likely to forget about moments after completing them. But that's part of their beauty, in my opinion at least. You can't have the good without the bad, and the bad makes the good shine even brighter than it normally would. Since this is my fourth time talking about them, I have no idea how to organically introduce them in a unique way, but the Coliseum is back with climax battles, known as ultimate matches in this game, making their grand return alongside a brand new set of other fun modes to try out after beating the main story. A brand new iteration of the Coliseum comes with a brand new cast of opponents, though all of them really love to block your attacks. Don't get me wrong, each opponent has a different fighting style and some even have weapons, but the strategy often boils down to the same thing regardless of the opponent if you want to handle them efficiently. Luckily, the tournaments available to the player provide some variety to the combat. Of course, there are the standard ones without any changes to the one with a lot of weapons, but you also have a tournament where bombs are constantly falling into the arena, as well as another where Kiryu and his opponent are practically boxing each other, yet neither of these stick out as much as the tag team tournaments. With 5 potential allies, Kiryu can take on a duo of opponents in 2 entirely unique tournaments unlike anything else that we've seen before. There are even special heat actions specifically made for these matches, making them feel like a well-thought-out addition rather than something that was hastily put together. It's honestly impressive how 3's Coliseum feels like an evolution despite being the oldest version of the ones I've played thus far. Good job, RGG. The House of Extras is a brand new addition that's entirely missable, yet it has 4 unique game modes that aren't really seen anywhere else in the series. First up is Battle for Survival, an RPG-like mode where you're dropped in Kamurocho at level 1 and have to fight Mina again, with the other bosses there as optional challenges you could use to grind your levels higher and make the final bout with Mina much more fair. It's quite the time investment, taking around an hour to complete if you go after all the bosses, so if you have the time to waste, then go for it. Survival Tag is much simpler in comparison, how you run to various landmarks around Kamurocho while being chased around by multiple Bob Utsunomiyas. It's still another time sink, so be careful as if they touch you even once it's game over. The final 2 modes are All-Star Tournament and All-Star Tag Tournament, which essentially act as ways to rematch the bosses and even fight alongside Majima. There are even several bonus editions like Hamazaki and Kazuki and Yuya to spice up the experience further. While these 4 modes aren't related all that much, it's pretty cool that they're even here in the first place. Lastly, Ultimate Matches are about what you would expect from climax battles, offering several challenges to close out your experience. This time around, there's a ranking system tied to how well you do in each of them. It could be based on time spent, how much damage you took, or simply completing the match, but it works well as a way to provide further engagement to the players and encourage them to spend more time to achieve the S rank. Some matches also feel more like puzzles than challenges. Take Challenge Match 5 for example. Rather than beating up a bunch of thugs, you have to position them in a way that allows you to take them all out in one singular move. It's a breath of fresh air that balances out the tedium that's otherwise associated with this mode. The standard boss rushes are still present as well, so you'll have a nice balance of things to do even with only 35 matches. Yakuza 3 without a doubt is the best bonus content in the entire series up to this point, allowing you to spend countless hours experiencing all of it even after beating Mine in the main story. In some ways, these modes are quantity over quality, but I still have to give credit where credit is due. RGG truly outdid themselves this time around. At the beginning of the video, I posed the question of whether or not Yakuza 3 is an underrated masterpiece, or if it is a skippable mistake. After spending some time thinking about it, it's become clear to me that neither side is correct. Call me a fence-sitter all you want, but it's genuinely how I feel about this game. Yakuza 3, for all of its faults, does a lot of things right. It continued to develop Kiryu's character in an interesting way that future games would follow and develop in their own ways. It expanded on systems featured in previous games like the Coliseum and Ultimate Matches to refresh the experience for returning players. It introduced key features to the series like dynamic intros that continue to be utilized in the modern day. And most importantly of all, it brought the Yakuza series into the PS3 era of gaming and set the standard for future games in the series to follow. But I can't in good conscience ignore its flaws. Its combat, while enjoyable to me, is still repetitive at times and can turn off players from the good aspects. The chase sequences are poorly made and downright frustrating at certain points due to a lack of responsiveness on the player's end. The soundtrack, while having some bangers like Fly, Soundstorm, and Independence or Violence, tends to have songs that blend together and become forgettable as a result. Yet I would be lying if I said I didn't have a fun time with it. There's just something about the highlights of this game that make me appreciate it even more than the flaws could drag it down. After a long while debating, I eventually came to the decision that I'd slot Yakuza 3 just below Kiwami 2 in third place. While both games were amazing experiences, the sheer variety in the things you can do and the quality of life improvements in Kiwami 2 are what gave it the edge in the end. I still love 3. Hell, I wouldn't have gushed about Mine's character for as long as I did if I didn't. But I also understand that sometimes the things you love are flawed and that's okay. All it means is that there's more room to grow, and later games take great advantage of that. But for the time being, Yakuza 3 left an undeniable impact on me that won't go away anytime soon. Fly high, Yakuza 3. And just like that, another game in the Yakuza series is done and dusted. Though, I will admit that this video ended up being a bit longer than I expected. Perhaps I just have more to say about these games, or maybe I'm becoming more confident about making these videos. Whatever the reason is, I'm honestly shocked by how well they've been doing, and I really can't thank you all enough for it. It might not be obvious, but I actually recorded all of the audio with a new microphone to hopefully mitigate some of the issues with my voice filter. Regardless of if it does or doesn't, leave your thoughts down in the comments section below so I can see what else I can do to improve these videos. Also, just so you're aware, starting with the Yakuza 4 video, the gaps between uploads should become much shorter as my time frees up in real life. This might end up leading to burnout, but I'll handle that when we get to it. For the time being, please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel before enjoying the rest of your night, day, or whatever. Take care, everyone.